Thank you everyone for joining today. We'll be starting very soon. Right, Jan, hold on a minute. We can get starting. Okay, Jan, let's get going. So everybody, thank you today for joining the Fueling Power BI with Jet Analytics webinar with myself, Danusha Jolliffe from T-Vision Technology and Jan from Insight Software. So I've been the marketing director here at T-Vision and been with the business for nearly 6 years now, also looking after the customer services team. And throughout the webinar today, I will be monitoring the chat and the question box. So if you do have any questions, please do get in touch and we can ask those as we go along. Jan, if you could introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, I'm Jan de Dijker. I'm a technical account manager for Insight Software, which means that I support partners with demos and trainings in our software, which today will be Jet Reports and Jet Analytics, right?
Yeah. So just to summarise what the aims are for today's webinar. So we're going to talk to you, I say we, Jan is going to do the demo for you, taking operational data, making sure that you can able to have some self-serve custom dashboards, to get some accurate governed data within that single source of truth that we all talk about, and offering the rapid time to value through this installation, which will only take several hours. So as I said, I'll be monitoring questions and chat. Do ask as we go along. Jan, over to you for the demo.
Thanks. So yeah, today we're gonna talk about Jet Analytics and Power BI and that combination. First off, a little bit about Insight Software. We make Jet Reports and Jet Analytics. We also do BizView, which is more planning, all for the Dynamics ERP systems. So again, today we're going to talk about Jet Analytics and how it works, how we set it up for Power BI, and what are the advantages of doing that. So as this slide already says as well, it says all Dynamics ERP data. We have a lot of experience in connecting to GP, AX, NAV, BC. So a lot of our customers have legacy there, of course. These days, even we see a lot of AX customers move to BC as well. So that knowledge in our products comes in handy a lot there. So what is the idea of Jet Analytics? Basically, it reduces your dependence not just on IT, but on a lot of technical skill. So getting your data towards that BI solution, towards Power BI in this case, and reducing the technical skill level needed for that to set it up, but also especially to maintain it over long periods of time. Right. So what also are we trying to do? We want to have a single version of the truth, as mentioned before, which means that everybody reports on the same numbers, right? So those numbers are set up once, and everybody reports on those same numbers, which feels really constructive when you're setting it up, because every time you set something up, you set something up for a lot of future use. You don't have to set it up every single time again. When you're making a new dashboard and you're making a new report, you can build on whatever was done before, which reduces maintenance a lot as well, of course. On top of that, we facilitate ERP upgrades, or these days a lot of acquisitions. For example, you acquire another company, they have another ERP system, and we merge that data. Same goes if you're moving from an NAV to a BC, for example. We can merge a lot of that data in the BI system, which avoid having to migrate that data to the new system. Because migrating that data to the new system again takes up a lot of time. Plus, you get all that old data in your new system, which you don't always want, and it doesn't always matches that well. Which is something we do constantly, of course, in BI. So what is Jet Analytics? I always split up Jet Analytics in 3 parts. Jet Analytics comes with Jet Reports. That's an entire different session on its own, Jet Reports. We deliver it with Jet Reports as a front end for Excel. Of course, most of our customers using Jet Analytics these days use a combination of Excel and Power BI, where we see, for example, in finance and inventory, there's always a demand for some lists and Excel reports, which Jet Reports is perfectly capable of automating, while a lot of the analytics, of course, is done in Power BI. Another thing that people really like, or where Jet Reports really adds to the Power BI experience, is scheduling. Something that is still very limited in Power BI. For example, being able to send out a certain report to every vendor by the end of the week. That's something that's really hard to set up in a Power BI, and Jet Reports allows you to set that up in Excel. So Jet Analytics comes.
Is there a limitation on the scheduling that you can do in those numbers of reports?
No.
Okay.
No, that's completely unlimited. So yeah. So we see that that combination of Excel with Jet Reports and Power BI is really fills up all of the gaps, let's say, right? So the next part on Jet Analytics is pre-built data warehouse and project with their OLAP cubes or tabular models, which means it's a turnkey solution for Dynamics ERP systems. We have a turnkey solution, of course, for Business Central, which we're going to talk about today, which allows us to get going on those systems, yeah, in a matter of hours, less even a lot of the time. So really brings value to that, and I'd say the value in that is at least a couple of weeks work. So they're really valuable. And the last part of Jet Analytics, which is by far the most important part, is the Jet Data Manager, which I'm going to show in the demo. And this is the solution that allows you to manage that solution, to go to a low code or even no code environment and still create your entire back-end data warehouse and tabular models to be used in Power BI. So that is very important part of it, of course. Good. Talking about BI a little bit, I identified 3 big areas of data in there. There's more, but these ones are important. So the first one is, of course, our source data, our source databases. Could be multiple, of course. They contain data, but a lot of the time these databases and the data structure there is completely optimized for data input, which actually is almost the opposite of making it optimized for data output. So what do? We create a data warehouse, which is a database specifically optimized for reporting and data output. So the idea of a data warehouse is you have to imagine someone who's never heard of BC, for example. It could be you could turn him to a BC database because some of the table names are quite normal, but still he's going to have a hard time to realize that the sales invoice lines and the sales credit memo lines are in 2 different tables, right? So what do we want to do with a data warehouse? We want a database where we can get someone, for example, with Power BI knowledge, and show him that database, and he could build a Power BI dashboard without making too many errors that he would otherwise make directly to the BC database. So that's a bit of the idea of the data warehouse. It goes a lot further, and we can do a lot more with it. Again, we could, in our financial transactions, for example, we could have financial transactions of several different systems at the same time, and the people reporting upon it, they just have financial transactions. So for them, it's all one big, complete unity. Budgets, for example, could be from Excel file, from another budgeting system, all in there. And the people reporting on it, they just use Power BI, so they don't need to know where all this stuff comes from. That's the great thing about the data warehouse. Coming back to that, facilitating ERP upgrades is a very important part of it, because you have the data warehouse, and just because you change backend system doesn't really mean that your data warehouse or reporting needs are going to change drastically. So you plug that new system into your data warehouse, do an acquisition, you plug that data into your data warehouse, and again, reporting just stays the same. So the data warehouse is really central in that solution, and a well set up data warehouse can take you a long, long way. So the last part on this is the data models, as we call them. Used to be cubes for Microsoft. These days it's tabular models. For the front-end users, they're exactly the same. What we do there is basically a perspective over that data warehouse, and a perspective, for example, in the sense of the finance perspective over that data warehouse. And the idea of a tabular model is that someone would know database knowledge, maybe even very little Power BI knowledge, you can learn him to make their own dashboards in half an hour. Just learn them the basics of Power BI and they can make their own dashboards. So that is the great idea. Usually when you see a Power BI demo, which I'm going to give in a second, people start off with there. They have that data model and then you can click together your dashboard in 30 seconds. And of course, that's the idea. That's what we want to do for our customers or for your employees. Okay. Building on that, we got the front-end visualization. Talking about Power BI, for example, Power BI is a powerful visualization tool that starts off, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's $10. No, it's actually free. The desktop version is free, right? And then the pro version is $10 a user a month. I always say dollars because I think Microsoft,
Yeah,
it's just $10, right? So it's a dollar that changes. Yeah. So it is a really powerful solution for that price. But again, when seeing those demos, a lot of what you see is the front end, and that's also what we want to see. But in reality, working on it and getting to a dashboard like that, majority of your work, 80 or 90%, is in that back end, getting that data from your Business Central, transforming it so that it makes sense to put into a dashboard. And that is where Jet Analytics comes in. So Jet Analytics really plugs in the middle between your ERP system or ERP systems and your front-end solution, in this case, Power BI or Excel. Good. Talking a bit about reporting in general, something you see a lot of the time is just Excel files. People doing stuff in Excel. Usually it's multiple people doing multiple things in Excel, and it's a bit all over the place. Introducing Power BI or Qlik, we've seen a lot with Qlik in the past, before Power BI was introduced as well, a bit of Tableau. You often end up in this situation where nothing's really changed, you just give your problem a different name, right? So people doing a lot of stuff in Power BI, and it's all a bit decentralized and everybody can make up their own truth. And again, looking at the people connecting to Business Central, they can all make the same mistakes, or to correct those mistakes, they all have to do the same transformations all on their own, which requires a lot of knowledge everywhere. And I can talk for most partners, and I think for TVision as well. So you have this guy here who knows Power BI, and knows it pretty well because he's able to connect to several systems and transform the data and make sense of it. He knows all these backend systems as well, pretty neat. And then he's able to pump out dashboards for the front-end users, so for the operations. So again, I can talk for TVision. If you have too many of these, send them to us, right? This is a true bottleneck in a lot of organizations these days. And it used to exist, this bottleneck, but the problem was 5 or 10 years ago, we had a couple of people within the organization that got access to BI. So you have a couple of people pulling on this person to make more dashboards. These days, what you want is, what a lot of the time, you want to enable your users to do their work better, and you want to give them access, to give them access to all the data they can have. Purchase, inventory, sales, they all want their own dashboards, their own reports in BI. And if all of those start asking this guy is already overworked, right? It takes 2 weeks to do a small change in a dashboard, and you want to get rid of that a bit. You want people to enable the people to make their own dashboards. So the solution there is put a BI layer in the middle, which means that a lot of the technical knowledge is actually put in this part, where we can have our the knowledge of these source systems and the knowledge to transform all this data and then prepare it for the end users. That is all done once. So still, someone has to do it, someone with technical knowledge, but he makes it constructively and then enables everyone to do data models on that, to do dashboards on that. And I'm going to show you now how that looks when someone does that. So, just for the last thing on that, in Jet Analytics, we have 6 or 7 standard data models. Today, I'm mostly going to demonstrate a sales data model because it's a pretty easy one to understand, right? So I'm going to demonstrate the sales data model. And first off, I'm going to show you what happens when you expose data model and you connect to it in Power BI and what that looks like. So first thing I'm going to show you is a dashboard that is already built. So this is a Power BI dashboard. It's pretty straightforward. Let's see if everything works. If I click anything, yep, everything changes. I click on this, yep. So this is a pre-built Power BI dashboard. So how do we get to this connecting to a data model? I'm opening up a new Power BI. Again, I said if you have any questions, meanwhile, type it in the chat or type it in the questions, and I'll see if they're relevant at this point, or we answer them by the end of the webinar. So what I'm going to do, I'm opening a new Power BI, and I'm get the data from analysis services. So what we do with Jet Analytics, we just create Microsoft SQL databases. So we got SQL databases, but we also got SQL Server analysis services. Could be Azure analysis services, your prerogative, of course. In this case, it's a SQL Server analysis services database. And of course, Power BI has native connectors to that. So I'm just going to connect to my data model. And as you can see, I got 2 of them set up here, and I'm going to go for the sales one. So what happens connecting to that? As I said, this is a perspective over my data warehouse, so everything should be fairly straightforward. And the idea is that someone with some sales background, again, you can give them half an hour introduction into Power BI. If they know pivot tables in Excel, you can do it 10 minutes, I think, in Power BI, and they're good to go. And the idea is that they can come here and they can say, oh, look, I want my sales posted transactions, my sales amount there, and they got the big amount, and then we can split it up by company. Let's put that company on the legend. Here we go. And then let's go to posting date and split it up by posting date. And this is by year. Let's click once, that's quarter, and these are months. Nice. So the idea is that someone, again, without all that database knowledge, can do a couple of clicks, has a nice chart there. Let's do 1 or 2 more. Let's do our a little pie chart here. And then some chart aficionados will say you can't use a pie chart because I'm doing item category and that's too many items to have on a pie chart. But I'm okay with that. And here I go to quantity. So all I did was click item category and click quantity, and I got my quantity by item category. So that's the idea of a data model. Of course, this is a lot of data. Maybe let's put a little slicer in, and let's do it on that on the year, so that I can select. I should have done a drop-down slicer. Select 1 year in that. Here we go. So this is what I was talking about. This is Power BI demo, and you can see in 30 seconds, I got an entire dashboard that I can click together. And what facilitates that? That's that backend. That is this data model that is all pre-built. This is our out-of-the-box data model. And I'm going to show you what makes Jet Analytics so special, that we make that really easy to maintain. So let me look at something I'm missing. So the first thing we do, usually we can get to this point in an hour or 2 on your own database, and we get to this point, and then we start off with this, and then we're going to look at what is missing here, right? What do you need to make this work for you? A lot of the time, it's something like some customer information or some item information needs to be added where we could split up that data. So for example, I got the item here, but I'm missing the product group. So there's no product group. It's a default field in MDC, but we haven't added it here. So how does that work? I'm jumping into the data manager, and if you can look, the data manager here has 3 big columns. So let's collapse all of this. Has 3 big columns, and these 3 columns roughly correspond with my slide from earlier, which is this one. Right, we got our source, our data warehouse, and our tabular model. So here we have our data sources, our data warehouse, and our tabular model. There's one extra here in this column, which is an intermediary database where you can do some transformations, basically the playground of the BI person. But what can we do now? We can jump into our data source. And as soon as I click my data source, on the right, you can see our tables, all our fields from Business Central. We expose them all, so that means you have access to your entire Business Central database, including extensions or anything you can think of. So I'm here, I'm gonna look for the product group code. There we go, we got the product group from the Business Central database. And I just checked that. The moment I checked it, it will be in my staging database. And from there, I can find it and I can just drag it to the item table on my data warehouse. And from the item table on my data warehouse, I can drag it to the item table on my sales data model. There we go. So the idea of this product, as I said, is very low code or no code at all.
That looked very easy to do.
Yeah, so regular maintenance is usually done by our customer cells, because otherwise, again, they would need someone from TV Vision. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys are not waiting to pick up the phone like, add one field to my Power BI data model. Thinking about Power BI on Business Central these days, a lot of it is just custom writing APIs, right? And that's just, yeah, takes a while to get all of this through, while we could do it in a couple of clicks. Now, there's a lot more to this tooling, of course. I don't want to make it too technical, but the great thing about it is that it keeps track of data lineage. So it knows really well which dependencies are between which fields, which is, yeah, a big part of the power to be able to maintain all of this, because it can get complex, right? You're doing currency calculations, you're doing a lot of transformations sometimes, but the software keeps a really good track of it. A lot of, we call it a bit of self-documenting, where you can jump into this, whoever built this, and it's easy to keep track of where everything goes. So one way to illustrate here, I can pull up a data lineage. And let's do this product group. You guys saw me do it. I checked it, and then I dragged it, and then I dragged it again. So it basically, it made 4 steps, starting from the source. I can visualization, I can do the impact analysis of that field, and you can see it take those 4 steps. So going for the source, to the staging, to my data warehouse, to my sales data model. And of course, that's a very simple field I just added. If you look like the field that's been used a bit more, so I think some of you might know the value entry, which keeps track of all the value entries, all the inventory transactions basically that have an effect on cost. Let's do the sales amount on the value entry. But you'll see where it ends up in that sales data model, where it's used in calculations like discount percentage and average unit price. And so you can easily keep track of all of it, what happens to a field like that. And that makes up a lot of the power to be able to maintain a project when it gets a bit more complex. Now, working in this, I can work in this in the entire day. At this point, nothing happened yet on my SQL Azure database or on my Power BI. I can do all my changes. Maybe you have multiple things to do before something will work, right? Before you want to add an entire table, for example, like item variant or something like that. So by the end of the day, or when I say this is ready, I can actually push this through to SQL. And I can even write a version note where I say added product group code, so that and on a later stage I can look back and see what I did back then, and I can even roll back my changes. Maybe I did something wrong. I can even very easily roll back a version or two if necessary. But the last thing I need to do is push out that data model towards Power BI. Again, towards SQL actually in this case, SQL Azure. Or this is SQL Server. And also the same thing at one point when we say, for example, as I said, this pushes out to a SQL Server. It's all technology. It's all technology. When you at one point you want to say, oh, let's move to SQL Azure, we just change the connection on this, and you push out the same data model to SQL Azure. So the transformation there is very, very straightforward as well. And let's refresh my Power BI, and you'll see the product group code up here, and I'll use it straight away. Let's do the product group code here, and let's do profit and discount on that product group. Here we go. Select one category, and you just get the product groups for that category, of course. So again, in a couple of clicks, you can very easily add a field to that, or even add an Excel file to that that contains budgets and pull that in so you can use it in Power BI. Good. Okay. Last thing I want to show you here, or one of the last things I want to show you here, is talking about Excel. Because as I said, we have a big mix between Power BI and Excel users, but it doesn't really matter. It's a bit of the user's prerogative on that, in that sense. There we go. And what we can do here, we can do basically the same thing. We can pull data, get data from analysis services, so exactly the same as we would do in as we did in Power BI earlier, and connect to those data models. And just to highlight it, I'll do exactly the same chart as I did earlier, do a stack chart, and we had the sales on that per company, and we put that company on the legend, and then we looked for the date, and we put that date not on the legend. There we go, and we open it up. And the data you get here is exactly the same. I can even look at my item. I got my product group code here as well, because I just added it to the data model on my Microsoft SQL, which means, yeah, it doesn't really matter if your users are prefer to use Excel. We see a lot in finance and inventory, right? And it doesn't really matter. You get access to the same data, and the results are the same. And Excel, to be honest, has some merits when you want to analyze the numbers. You got this minus 319 here, for example. You can double click it, and you get the individual postings for that number. So Excel does allow you to navigate that data a lot faster. While Power BI is a very powerful tool to build up a dashboard and publish it.
The visualization.
With your colleagues.
Yeah.
But again, we don't discriminate on that. We even have customers using Tableau on it or Qlik. It's not, so the majority is Power BI and Excel, of course. But yeah, we don't discriminate on that. We're just a layer between that front-end BI and your Business Central in this case. Oh, let me see if I wanted to. Oh yeah. So moving back to this a bit, a lot of the power is, of course, in the dependencies. We have a lot of advantages there, because what we can do as well, we can refresh the data, of course. This isn't real time, so we're refreshing the data, but we got a number of customers refreshing every 15 minutes or even faster. And you have unlimited refreshes on that. There's no penalty on that. So we can refresh multiple times an hour, no issue. And another thing that we can easily do, we can pull on the other side of that thread. So you saw me do the impact analysis, but from the same end, let's take another data model here, the finance data model. Finance is pretty simple, right? Because you got your GL entries and your dimensions and your chart of accounts, and then you're basically there. Right? So, but the thing is, if I want to refresh this, I need to refresh all these tables, and maybe it gets a lot bigger, right? Just to have that finance data model refreshed. We can do it the other way. We can look at that finance data model and can ask the product, we can ask it, what do we need to refresh this finance data model? And let me enable that just a second there. And if we ask the product that, it'll just tell us. And this is completely dynamic. If we work on that finance data model, it'll just add to that, and it'll refresh anything you need for that finance data model and nothing more. So that allows us to do, for example, more of the time it's like inventory, to do inventory every 10 minutes, while we do finance 2 times a day, right? So it allows us to do very quick refreshes. But there's a lot of advantages to doing it that way, and it scales really, really well, because it scales with SQL. So yeah, that's basically the lowdown of it. Let me get back to the PowerPoint. Yeah, we went through that. So I think I'm back to you, Danusha.
Yeah, so obviously we've shown you there about taking that operational data And building those self-service custom dashboards, as you've shown us, Jan, it does look really, really straightforward. Then people do have the option of looking at it in Excel or in Power BI, as you've mentioned. I think the single source of truth comment is very, very valid. And when multiple people are working on a system, you need that single source of truth, and this is a very good way to demonstrate that. And you've said there about the turnkey installation within a matter of hours. If someone knows what they're doing, they can do it even quicker. And obviously we can help that arrangement at the beginning and make sure that that integration and that interface between the NAV or BC data, JET analytics, and then the next stage looks whether that is in Power BI or whether that's in Excel. So I haven't had any more questions, but the one I do have is how easy and how quick is it for us to speak to our clients and then to get you to get that sorted out for them?
Well, what we usually do is, first off, I got a video on this where I set it up on a test database. Of course, the biggest table is 1 million records, and I do it in less than 15 minutes.
Okay.
So you can set it up really, really fast. But we do provide possibilities of demo license, for example, even where you can just have it tested out, see that everything works, and see if it works for you. But yeah, it goes anywhere. Usually for a real installation, I'd say anywhere between an hour and half a day to set it up. And then of course doing some modifications so that yeah, the fields you want in there are in there for you. As for the as you said, the dashboards, a good example is I had a partner who basically still sold individual Power BI dashboards, and the break-even point was between creating manual dashboards or getting a Jet Analytics in between. The break-even point was about 10 dashboards.
Okay.
So basically, they asked their customers, "Do you want 10 dashboards or more?"
Yeah.
And that was because it's nothing but a productivity tool. It just makes setting that up and maintaining that a lot easier. There's a lot of powerful functionality in it. As I said, as soon as you start adding a lot of complexity, it's almost a no-brainer to put something in between. And with complexity, I mean you have a CRM or a budgeting system next to it, or you have multiple ERP systems that you want to do, whether it's upgrades or not, or even you just have a complex vertical. Transport, retail, and the verticals just get too complex to just maintain it all.
Or Bevica with a number of our clients as well.
Yeah. So and using that just gets too complex, too many tables to be able to maintain in a simple data model. Yeah, that's where it really starts to shine. And as I showed you, I just added that product group code. Could come from anywhere, but once I set that up with my knowledge where it comes from, everybody can use it, right? In Excel and Power BI, whoever looks at the data warehouse has access to that product group code now. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's okay. You said about you can input and plug in a number of ERP systems. Is there a limit in any way?
Well, the licensing is per connector.
Okay.
So there is no user licensing because everything we output is, as I said, Microsoft technology. So we put out Microsoft SQL, Microsoft SQL analysis services. So that means it's the front end. If you need front ends like Power BI, you pay the Power BI per user, but there's no extra cost for Jet Analytics. Whether you buy it for 5 users or 500 users, Jet Analytics stays the same cost, but the number of systems you connect to, that's where the Jet Analytics licensing is. But other than that, there's no limit on that. Let me just jump to it for a second. We got well, what is it here? No, it wasn't sample. Was I used, yeah. So we work together with a company called CData, and they make a lot of connectors, and all of them are licensed within Jet Analytics. Okay. So you can go to that website and scroll through it. I know it's scrolling too fast for you to read, but if you have any of these systems, and there's a lot of them in there, like Salesforce, Google Analytics, YouTube, Mailchimp, stuff like that. It's all in there. we have access to all of those, and we have a number of them more. But usually, yeah, we just got a customer with Magento, for example, and we have all F connectors for that as well. So the one we use a lot here, I don't know if it's in your customer it's relevant. It's the sales, so the CRM part.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the one we always use CData as connector for CRM. Pretty good. So yeah, they have Business Central connectors, but we have others.
Yep.
But, yeah.
That's great. So no more questions have come through. So thank you so much, Jan, for that session today. If anyone has got any questions, then obviously we can put you in touch with Jet directly. Any, or rather the demo, this demo will be available online in the next few days, and the link will get sent out afterwards to all of you who attended, and you can share with your colleagues. So once again, Jan, many thanks for being here today with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Great. Thanks so much. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.